All right, here we go. Another season for the Buffalo Bills approaching. Training camp now underway, and another shot at Josh Allen and the Bills to get to the Super Bowl. I'm Kevin Carroll along with Andy Young. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, everyone. We are back after a brief break between mini camp and training camp, but we're good to go, Andy, and everything is full tilt at this point as we start this push to the regular season.
Speak for yourself, K-Man.
Whoa!
I had a month off. It's the hard knock life for me, okay?
Boom. Of course, Hard Knocks, maybe Andy and I will be on Hard Knocks this year. One never knows, because that's one of the big things out at Bills minicamp right now, and you can't help but notice it everywhere. HBOs Hard Knocks, they are following the Bills during training camp this year. Actually, Hard Knocks with a winning football team for once, Andy.
It's rare.
It seems like, different rules the NFL applied where playoff teams used to get the opportunity to pass, but that time has passed. Now Hard Knocks can say, we want it. And I got to be honest with you, players might not like it, coaches might not like it, but I guarantee you fans of the NFL across the country are going to like what they end up seeing unless they really drop the ball on it. But so far, so good. They were there for the first day. Not a ton of drama with the Bills right now, but again, it's just day one of camp.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills are a relatively boring, great team. There isn't a whole lot of drama. I mean, we've seen very few instances during the Sean McDermott era of a whole lot of drama. It's typically a pretty buttoned-up organization. There have been things here and there, Stephon Diggs and different things that have happened throughout the course of time. James Cook happening right now, which petered out as well because there's not a whole lot going on there as well with his contract saga, and we'll get to that. But, you've got the MVP who's married to a Hollywood actor in Haley Steinfeld, so Josh Allen is obviously going to be a big focus of this. But overall, it's kind of interesting to see how they approach a team that is really good but just hasn't quite gotten over the hump. And I think that's the big story with this team, and maybe they get some insight into the pressure mounting to get over that hump and to beat the Chiefs and to get to the Super Bowl. That'll be the interesting part to me, to kind of see if there are any cracks inside the organization that we don't normally get to see.
Yeah, you and I, we get a inside look more than regular fans of the Bills because of what our job is covering the team. But even we were talking today that the access that Hard Knocks gets is way beyond what we as reporters who are there for the Bills throughout the season and through camp and stuff like that. So even I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up. Like, it's Rochester. I used to live in Rochester, Pittsford, the places you go to around there. Oak Hill, the golf course right around the corner from St. John Fisher, where camp is going on right now. So I'm looking forward to see some of that. And of course, Andy, I did have a cameo in Full Swing a couple of years ago when the PGA was at Oak Hill. We'll see what happens with Hard Knocks, and then I can start building my IMDb page.
Well, you have like two claims to fame now, which is Full Swing, right?
Yep,
and
yep.
appearing for a couple of seconds.
3 seconds.
Right, during the PGA championship there at Oak Hill. And then your whole Doug Flutie marathon, Boston Marathon thing. That's your other claim to fame. So
Beat him by 33 seconds, in case anyone's wondering.
You need a third thing to remind people of. So, hopefully that's it for Hard Knocks. But I'm most interested to see what it's like behind the scenes in those difficult meetings. How does Brandon Beane handle cutting a player?
Right.
How do they handle the process of deciding on who to cut or who to trade or who's going to be a starter? I mean, that's things that we don't normally get a glimpse of. So I think that's going to be really cool. People are going to enjoy the fun stuff where, players meetings and the talent show and things like that, if the Bills are doing those sorts of things. Some family time. Like we saw Deion Dawkins. He was being featured today. It looked like they were focused on him after practice. He had his kids out there. and his whole family, and they were hanging out, laying on the grass, playing around. So there's some touching moments like that. But I'm more interested in the machinations of Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott and Josh Allen and meeting rooms, and how does that all work?
And I would venture to say that maybe one of the storylines they were looking for would have been James Cook not being there. And you can hear the narrator of Hard Knocks saying, but one of their players did not report, and stuff like that. So James Cook reports to camp. He still wants more money, wants a new contract. That's still out in the air, but he showed up to mini camp. He's shown up to training camp, likes his money, obviously. And it basically seems like he said, all right, I wanted more money. I didn't get it. I love playing for this team. I'm not going to hose anyone over. I'm going to show up.
I just don't think it really works in his favor to hold out or to hold in and do all those things, because he's going to get paid by somebody. So unless you're willing to sit out the whole season, what does it prove to not go to training camp? Unless you're like saying, look, I don't want to get hurt, right? I guess that's a part of it for sure, right? Like, I'm not going to play under this final year of my rookie deal because I don't want to get hurt and I'm going to go to free agency or whatever. But to my mind, it just benefits him to come out here and do what he does, right? And I thought he looked really good during teamwork today. Obviously, it was mostly red zone, so they were like 10 yards and in. So there's a couple of running plays. He scored a couple of the only touchdowns the offense had on a slow day, and he looked good. He didn't look like he was lollygagging or anything like that, or pouting, any signs of anything like that. So,
I was going to ask you that.
You
covered
kind
him.
of brought that up at minicamp, and I didn't like your take on that one, but I'll let you digress here.
I noticed after every drill at minicamp, he would put his head down and just kind of slowly walk away. Now, I was focused on James Cook during minicamp. I was handling the defense today. We'll get to some of that as well. So I didn't get to see him, but you're saying that he was not showing signs of this is a pain to be here.
Well, if you I've covered Cook since he was a rookie. Like, he's not a big, boastful, chatted up, bombastic kind of character. Like, he kind of just does his job. He's quiet. I mean, we've heard that time and time again from his teammates, coaches, Brandon Beane, that he's just a quiet guy and kind of goes about his business. And I think that's kind of what he was doing at minicamp, I think. I mean, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary that he has ever done before. He runs his drill, he jogs back and does it again, right? So in terms of the effort on the field during plays, looked good to me. And I mean, he was one of the brighter spots of a kind of a slow start for the offense on this day.
Now, you mentioned Brandon Beane there, and Beane did say during his post-practice presser that he hopes James Cook is with the team at this time next year back at St. John Fisher. So it seems like I still think something's going to happen. I think the Bills are going to give him some sort of new deal before we get to the regular season, but that remains to be seen. But, earlier when we heard from Beane, it seemed like they weren't going to give Cook what he wants. But as things go on through camp, Andy, we know just randomly out of the blue someday, some sort of off-the-field news happens. Brandon Beane saying that he hopes Cook is with the team at this time next year, I think says something.
A little bit, but he also did couch that by saying right before that we've had so many times where it just didn't work out with a guy. We love the player, but the money, the financials, whatever the player was looking for, guaranteed money, term, the length of the contract, whatever the Bills were up against as far as cash and dead cap and looking down the line. He mentioned this isn't just about 2025, it's into 26 and 27 and thinking about the overall picture. So to me, that says, yeah, we love James Cook. I mean, how could you not? He's been really good for them, but we're not going to break the bank. We're not going to give him $15 million, which is what it seems like he wanted. I mean, I think there's room to make a deal. It's whether the Bills value that to give him 10, 11, 12 million to get in that range, or if Cook is willing to accept that, or just says, look, I'm going to play. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be a good soldier. And then, when it's time to go out in the free agent market, I'm going to see what I can get.
I think that's the best play right now. Cook go into the season. I don't think he's going to replicate what he did last year, but come close and see what happens. As they say, roll the dice on yourself, believe in yourself, and, we'll see what happens throughout the season. You mentioned how Bean was talking about hard decisions and having to move on from players. And one of the guys he brought up, who's now back with the team, Tre'Davious White, Andy, the Bills cornerback. He was a star. He was Sean McDermott's first pick. They didn't bring him back after a couple of injuries plagued him. Played for a couple of different teams last year. Now he's back with the Bills, and Bean saying it's really good to have him back. He actually said that, he normally doesn't sit there and root for players to do well during practice. He just kind of watches, but he couldn't help but feel good to see Tre'Davious make a play here and there.
Yeah, I thought Tre'Davious looked fine. He kind of split reps with Maxwell Harrison, the rookie, as far as some of those top, first team, second team type reps. And I thought he looked fine. I mean, he was making plays. He was in there. He was, the offense didn't have a great day in that red zone work. And I think that the defense did a nice job. The cornerbacks really did a pretty good job overall. To see Trey White out there battling and doing those things is good from a Bills fan's perspective, because he was a beloved player when he was on his game. He was an all-pro. He was very good. And while injuries and time have probably eroded some of the athleticism and top-notch peak skills that he had, I think, to have him as a reliable vet while mentoring the rookie and being able to start games if necessary, if Harrison doesn't take the job, you could be in worse shape. He was the fourth or fifth cornerback for the Ravens last year. So I don't know how much you want to completely rely on him, but he knows this defense, and, he's another year removed from those injuries. So, if he can come out here and give you something, and wouldn't surprise me at all if he ends up being the starter. I think the Bills, at least for part of the season at the beginning, I think it would be best for the Bills if Hairston can go out and just win that job outright. And we'll talk about Hairston, I'm sure, very shortly. But to have Trey White there is a nice piece to have.
Yeah, and it's Trey White, his entrance to the practice field today with the bucket hat. He brought energy. He came out running around out there. That was good to see, going off of the last training camp we had where Trey White was here coming off an injury. You later found out, mentally how tough it was for him in the position he was in. So even at that, he looked like the enjoyable Trey White and in a good spot. And when we talked to Max Hairston, he said Trey was one of his idols, and now he's one of his buddies, and he loves Trey White right now.
Yeah, for Hairston, that's clutch to have some veteran presence to go along with Christian Benford, but he's got Dane Jackson there, and Dorian Strong, another rookie cornerback, is there as well. Jordan Hancock, a newcomer in the defensive backfield as well. So, a guy like Trey and Dane Jackson, to have those guys there to help them is going to be huge. And I thought that Max Hairston had a nice day. Like, there were some up and down moments. There was one play where he was in coverage in the end zone on Dalton Kincaid. He was right there, but he just didn't see the ball, and Allen hit Kincaid for a touchdown, one of the few touchdowns the Bills offense had in that red zone work. But a little later in practice, he was covering KJ Hamler. Hamler ran a slant route, and I think he probably beat Hairston off the line, but Hairston showed that immense recovery speed that he has. Fastest man at the combine, right? 4.28 40. And you just saw it, like, all of a sudden Trubisky throws the ball, or whomever it was, and in shoots Maxwell Hairston to break it up. And that was a really nice play. So he had a couple of nice little flashes there. He got some work with the ones and the twos. So, I think that's going to be a work in progress. But again, the Bills need him to go out and win this job, to have that athletic profile, to be young, to have the speed and all those things. Yeah, Trey White's a nice story, but if he's better than Trey White by a lot, that's a good thing for the Bills.
And I think at this stage where we are right now, that it is Hairston's job to lose. I think the Bills want him. They drafted him where they drafted him to be that guy to come in and have an impact right away. So for the team, Max Hairston, his first NFL training camp going into it, seems like his head is in the right place too.
Yeah, and he's dealing with some off the field stuff as well. A lawsuit over past alleged sexual assault back when he was, coming out of high school, going to the University of Kentucky, and we talked to him about that as well. And he said, "Look, I was exonerated by police at the time after an investigation. I was not charged." And the University of Kentucky did its investigation, and he said, "I've been dealing with this since, coming right out of high school." So,
Yeah.
Brandon Beane was also kind of adamant and went out of his way to defend Max Hairston in this situation and said, like, if you knew his family, if you knew who this young man was, we did our investigation. We don't think there's anything to it. I was a little surprised at how Beane went out on a limb, went out on the ledge to go out that far to comment about that situation in that way, but that's his prerogative, whether it's right or wrong, right? So for Hairston, yeah, he's dealing with that. But as far as football-wise, he's feeling good. He's excited and enjoyed himself out there.
Yeah, his comments were really interesting to me, Andy, sticking up for this young player and talking about what kind of person he is. But the way Beane talked about the incident and what's going on right now and the fact that, the police, Kentucky, the Bills, they all did their due diligence with this to make sure that this was a good guy. And you mentioned Beane was like, he could come into my house whenever he wants, hang out with my family. He's such a great guy. And that, what's going on with this suit against him just doesn't mesh. But the way Beane talked about it, I haven't heard anything. Like you and I were talking, I'm like, I don't know how Hard Knocks is going to deal with it, but I was kind of shocked how far out on that ledge you talked about the Bills general manager actually went.
Yeah, I was surprised by that because it would be easy enough for Brandon Beane to say, look, that's pending litigation. That's Maxwell's issue. We stand behind him, but I'm not going to comment on it and just move on, right? And maybe more questions come and you just say that. Whether he's right or wrong that Hairston did or didn't do this, or that, the allegation that, someone's out to get Hairston's money or things like that. I mean, I don't want to go down that road because I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
He did bring up Matt Araiza too.
Yeah,
but without saying Matt Araiza's name. We all knew
Matt
who
Araiza, they released him after he was, alleged to have done something and then was never charged. So, I mean, it's just such a tough situation.
Right.
And, people get offended by if you do believe somebody or if you don't believe somebody, either way. So, like, I'm trying to be careful about what I say right now. I know you do too. But, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult situation no matter what. And for the Bills and then obviously Hairston to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's football-wise, that's the big thing for me is keeping an eye on Trey White and Hairston and see how that thing goes. Because as camp rolls along, we're going to start to see some sort of separation with them.
Yeah, what did you make? You were more with the defense today. What did you see from Cole Bishop in that safety battle? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Cole Bishop, again, a guy who did not practice all spring long. We're kind of waiting to see if he was going to be on that PUP list or whatever to start training camp, but he was out there. He looked good. He looked kind of like a leader, like he's ready to take on this role, Andy. And, I mean, you don't get, when I was in the period keeping an eye on him, you don't get that much out of it because it's them just backpedaling and catching balls and, doing form tackling and doing drills where they're just knocking balls out of each other's hands. But, I mean, he looked comfortable. He looked like he was ready to roll after, having 1 year under his belt, now going into his second season. And, again, he's another guy that I think the Bills want him to be the starter. I mean, DeMar Hamlin's a great story. You have Taylor Rapp, who's going to be one of the starting safeties, and that's the battle back there. But you went out and you drafted Cole Bishop high. You want him now, after an injury-plagued, tough first season, to get out there and just take that starting job and run away with it. You know, we get our first look with them in just shorts and helmet, you know, as camp goes on, and you can see more of, you know, more football type of stuff as camp goes on. But as far as watching him ride a bicycle all spring long and seeing what he did on the first day, I'll say it's definitely a step up, Andy.
Okay. I mean, he did spend some time with the first team. DeMar Hamlin did as well. So I think there's no doubt that they would love Cole Bishop to take that role. They draft him in the second round. He's got a great athletic profile, smart kid by all accounts. So for him to go out there and win that job, great. But, you know, Hamlin's still there. I like Derek Forrest, too. He got some reps as well. So, I mean, they're not going to hand jobs to anybody unless your name's Josh Allen, basically, right? So, you know, DeMar's going to get his shot. I think Bishop, again, like Max Hairston, would be best for the Bills. But if that doesn't happen, you're not just going to throw a guy out there because of their draft status.
Yeah. We mentioned guys who didn't practice at all during the spring. That brings us to Joey Bosa, Andy, who I thought would not be practicing to start camp either, but he was out there. He was dealing with a lower leg injury, to talk like a hockey coach.
A calf.
But he was out there. He spoke to the media. Again, you watch players at those positions on the first day of camp. What are they going to do? They're not in pads. They're not really slamming into each other, but it's Joey Bosa. And he looks like Joey Bosa sitting out there. And he talks to the media about, you know, not wanting to bash LA, but loving this fresh start here with the Bills. You know, he even mentioned how, you know, we hear this all the time with the Bills about how close they are and that they do stuff together all the time. And Joey, I almost said Joey Bishop. Who's Joey Bishop? Was he a singer at one time?
I have no idea, but you're talking about Cole Bishop a segment ago.
Yeah, that's probably it. I think Joey Bishop was part of the Rat Pack back in the day. Anywho, yeah, so, and, you know, he mentioned Bills Mafia, and he just mentioned good to have a fresh start. He also talked about all the coaching changes that were going on out in L.A. So for a first day of camp, looking at Joey Bosa, again, we'll get more there. He was out there. He practiced, spoke to the media, which is good. If you're a Bills fan, I think you were pretty happy that Joey Bosa was out there on the first day.
Yeah, I mean, he says the injury is behind him. He said it was frustrating the first few days after it happened during the spring that forced him to miss all of OTAs and minicamp. And they're cautious with him. They have to be, given his injury history. That guy has had a lot of injuries over his career, hasn't played in a full season in quite some time. And, you know, there's all the talk about bubble wrapping him and making sure he's ready for the playoffs. I mean, there's only so much of that you can do. Like, if he's on the roster and he's Joey Bosa, he's playing in the regular season, you can limit the amount of exposure you give to him and the amount, hoping that there's some load management and you can get him to the end of the season and he's good to go for the playoffs. But, I mean, it's just something to bear watching because that history is there and it doesn't lie, and he's 30 years old.
I think the defense is the key thing to keep an eye on during camp, obviously, because that's where during the offseason the Bills focused on improving that pass rush and even going after defensive pass rushers in the draft. And Deion Walker, Andy, a guy that they were taking it slow with, but they're not taking it slow with him at this point.
Deion Walker, the massive man out of Kentucky, the fourth-round draft pick, had my favorite play I saw all day long during the 11-on-11 drills, offense versus defense in the red zone. this guy is so big, and he's standing among men who are massive, and he's half a head taller than these guys and just wide-bodied. And I watched him on a play. He's playing interior defensive line, take 3 Bills offensive linemen and push them back into the quarterback and blow up the play. It was awesome. As a former lineman who was never good, I was never good at football. Will never get that twisted. I will never say I was, but it just made me feel good. Like, holy cow, that dude just train wrecked 3 offensive linemen. He was getting double teamed, and I think he split the double team, pushed the 2 guys into a third guy, and right back into the quarterback's lap and blew up the play. If that guy who had a back injury in college and was limited kind of on a rep count during the spring, he's good to go now. They said he's off that rep count, that restriction. If he is what he was a couple of seasons ago at Kentucky when he was just an absolute beast, I mean, man, have they found something special, because that's the kind of player they haven't had, that big nose tackle who's just dominating. Like, Daquan Jones has been fine. He's been a fine player, but to get a young guy like that with that size and some athleticism, some pass rush juice too, if he's good to go and he's playing like that and making plays like that, Bills fans are going to love that.
So as we're sitting here talking about it, the Bills needed to focus on the defense, wanted the defense to get better. First day of training camp, they outduel the offense. So problem solved, right, Andy? Here we go.
It's funny because the last couple of years, at least last year I remember at camp, the offense came out and lit the defense on fire. And this day one of camp, really the defense was all over it. Christian Benford had outstanding coverage all day long. You saw defensive backs and linebackers just blanketing receivers, and the offense had its struggles. A couple of plays, Josh Allen hit Kincaid, he hit rookie Jackson Hawes for a touchdown, he hit a swing pass to Cook had a rushing touchdown. But, I mean, Keon Coleman had some struggles. I think it was a frustrating day. Now, it started really well. I thought he had a really fun play. I put it out on X on social media. It was a play I was able to shoot during our filming period. It's just routes against air, and it was a fade pass from Allen to Coleman, and he went up and one-handed it, and that was cool, and got the oohs and ahs from the crowd, and I put a slow-mo on it. But during the team drills, I mean, there wasn't much doing there. A lot of balls went his way. Some fade passes, some corner routes in the back of the end zone, things like that, and it just wasn't happening for him. I didn't see where he was getting open, and it's hard to get open, really open in that short area space, right, when you're inside the 10-yard line in general. But, there was some frustration there, I think, from him, because it wasn't happening for him on a few different tries.
With Joshua Palmer and Elijah Moore added to the offense, one of the few or a couple of the few additions to the Bills offense, there has been talk since Keon Coleman got here, but you have Khalil Shakir in the slot, that maybe he might be better suited to be playing in the slot. And maybe if Elijah Moore and Joshua Palmer explode, maybe there's other things Joe Brady could probably do to scheme Keon Coleman open more. And maybe that's something that might evolve as we see how all this unfolds.
Yeah, the more you watch it, there's no shade to Keon Coleman. He has a hard time getting open sometimes. And so if they want to use him in certain ways to get him open, to help him, that's on Joe Brady, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can push a player and you can improve their technique, and they can work as hard as they can, right? But, as an offensive coordinator, you got to put guys in positions that help them best succeed. So they may have to find some different ways to get Keon Coleman the football, other than just like throw, jump balls down the field, because those are difficult plays regardless whether you're open or not, right? And to just get up and out physical a guy for a football, those are tough plays. That's part of why they brought him in here, was the hope that he could do that. And he's done some of that. Like, I mean, he had some great, like, think about him in Seattle, right, against a really good cornerback out there, and just rising up and snatching the football. I mean, so it's there, right? But it's not it's not consistent. And Keon, to his credit, has worked on that, and he's going to continue to have to get better to thrive in this league.
Now, the other guy, Keon Coleman, called out. They want more from him this year. Dalton Kincaid's the other one. Dawson Knox starts camp on the PUP list with a hamstring injury. So even more eyes on Dalton Kincaid right now. You mentioned he had a touchdown during the red zone drills. Anything more noticeable from him? You mentioned how you noticed Coleman still having trouble getting separation. You know, Dalton Kincaid, and it was talked about the season basically ended with him unable to come up with a catch. I think he dealt with it well, and now here we are in training camp. And compare him to Keon Coleman as to what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to say because the defense really did control most of that day, but Kincaid looked fine. He had some nice plays. He had that nice play in traffic against Maxwell Hairston. He got open a little bit and made some plays there. So, I mean, especially with Dawson Knox, if he's got something with his hamstring that he tweaked last week while working out, and that's something that lingers, I mean, that's going to be even more incumbent upon Kincaid to be that guy. And it's something that he needs to do anyways. And he knows that. The Bills have said it. We've talked about it all offseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been one of the themes that they want and need more out of Kincaid. And, you know, so far so good. I mean, there's nothing downfield today at all, right? There was no one-on-one drills against cornerbacks and receivers, again, linebackers and safeties against the receiver, any of that. It was all basically just interior teamwork. So we didn't get a real glimpse of what this could be. And it was first day. So I'm not going to draw too many conclusions. Keon Coleman, who I just said maybe had a struggling day, tomorrow he comes out here and lights the world on fire. That's how camp is.
Yeah, and when it comes to Knox missing some time, if I'm the Bills, I'm taking it easy with Dawson Knox. He knows the offense. He's really good friends with Josh Allen.
I didn't know that.
I would take it slow. Well, I'm trying to transition into Josh Allen. It's hard to believe, Andy, the MVP of the league, and we're getting to quarterback Josh Allen towards the end of the podcast here, but that's what you kind of get when you have the MVP as your quarterback. What are you really gonna say about the guy? You know, I mean, of course, he's still, listen, this just in, he still looks like Josh Allen. He still has the Josh Allen personality. Maybe marriage didn't affect him like some thought it would, Andy, but he's out there doing his thing. You know, there are sports fans out there that are like that, you know.
Yeah, we work with some of them.
Yeah, none of them in the sports department, but
no,
yes.
Not in the sports media, but folks seem to think that significant others have a major bearing on the play of certain people on the field.
But so Josh Allen,
we'll leave it at that.
What do you do? You're Josh Allen. You were MVP. But what's next? Like, you were MVP last year.
Do it again.
This is 2025. Who cares what you did last year? You need to do more this year.
Yeah, do it again, right? Like, keep the turnovers down again. Maybe bring the passing yardage back up. It was down a little bit last season. You know, you cut down the turnovers and the fumbles and the plays like that. But he said that he still thought that he put too many balls in harm's way. Obviously, he's got a couple of new receivers that he's working in. He needs to improve the chemistry with Keon, continue to grow with Shakir, and just keep on doing what he's been doing, right? And I think, too, like, a couple of times in big moments, you know, make it happen, right? And that's all you can do. Like, I have no doubt that he can do it, right? I think he's proven he's played at a high level for like 5 years now. He's a golden made man in the NFL at this point.
Yeah, and he kind of blamed himself for all the heat Kincaid is getting, because there were times where he didn't get the ball to Kincaid when he thought he should have.
Yeah, and he brought up, you know, if I throw a better ball against the Chiefs, when you got 8 guys blitzing you, I don't know if that's possible, but, you know.
You're the MVP, you should be able to do that.
And he's also the quarterback of the team, and he needs to fall on that sword, and he knows that. I mean, talk about guys that get it, right? Like Josh Allen, of probably any player I've ever covered in my career, gets it. He gets his role. He understands it, that he's got to fall on the sword, and he knows that he's got to say those things. And, and he's the guy who pushes this thing, right? He's the guy that makes this machine go. So the Bills go as he goes. If he has another good season, they're going to have another good season.
It's just one day into training camp, so a lot more to come.
Hey, Tyler Bass, perfect on his field goals. I believe he was 5 for 5, so people will like that. New holder, Brad Robbins, the punter.
Number 40.
Yeah,
I'm a jersey number guy, Andy. That just doesn't look right. That's Von Miller's number. Holding the ball.
Speaking of Von Miller, I believe he's now wearing 24 for the Commanders.
I heard that too. I think
linebackers. I don't like Terrell Bernard wearing 8. Like, that's his prerogative. That's the rule.
I always remember when they started allowing those numbers at any position. I always remember Tom Brady was with the Buccaneers and was furious about it because all of his success and all his years, he brought up that you recognize position by players' numbers. Now that it's helter-skelter with what number people are wearing, I mean, I think he went on to win a Super Bowl after complaining about this, but still, it's just weird for some of us old-timers to see these strange numbers on people at all these different positions.
Right. Like, I miss wide receivers wearing 80s. Like, that's what we grew up with.
Andy, this is, you bring that up. When I was a kid in the 80s and you were watching a preseason game, if the wide receiver had a number 80 on, or one of the 80s numbers, they were one of the starters. They were one of, the guys who are likely to make the team. Someone goes out there with a number in the teens and a single-digit number, you knew they were going to get cut. It's completely flipped over now.
Right, it's like
if you see someone other than a tight end with an 80s number on, you're like, oh, that guy's probably not making the roster.
Right. I like Tyrell Shavers. He wears number 80.
I know. But it's just completely different now, and it's, like I said, right. For us who've been watching football since the late 70s, sometimes it just doesn't look right. But I mean,
didn't back in the day sometimes like defensive linemen and linebackers even would wear like 60s? I didn't like that either.
Yeah, when I was in high school, they did.
I always liked D linemen in the 70s and 90s. I liked offensive linemen in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
My favorite number in sports since I was a little kid was number 11. The first time I ever had a good year in baseball, I was number 11. Wanted to wear it playing high school football, but they were like, wide receivers don't wear number 11. You got to pick a number in the 80s. And now all these awesome wide receivers like Larry Fitzgerald, Julian Edelman, all wear number 11. It's almost like that was the number. Mm-hmm. Alas, I was number 83 because of Andre Reed.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Like we said, training camp just getting underway. Time now to do a little 2-minute drill, Andy. One practice in the books, more to come. Bills have 2 more to go this week. They will start to inch closer and closer to putting on those pads, and then we get to see a little bit more from the team, and I'm so looking forward to that. I mean, these practices get repetitive for people like us, and now as we get closer to some banging and stuff like that, it gets better than just shooting what we've been shooting since OTA started.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun part about this is seeing those new defensive linemen, seeing Landon Jackson, seeing Joey Bosa, seeing TJ Sanders, big Deion Walker go out there and hammer a guy across from him on the offensive line and vice versa, the run game, all of those things. Like, we talk about the pass game and Josh Allen and all those sorts of things, but at the same time, getting those big physical guys up front is really the key. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have said it all along. So as you start to get the pads on, you get to have a better feel for how all those new pieces on defense are going to come together.
And it's a slow process. Football's the same from high school all the way up to pros. You have shirts, shorts, and your helmet. And then one day they have their pads on. That's coming up around the corner, but no full pads. And then the full pads show up, Andy, and then the contact starts, and then things get a little chippy, even with teammates at training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. We always get a scrum or two coming between different players where they get heated. They have some words. Maybe somebody takes a little bit of a cheap shot that another guy thinks wasn't a cheap shot. So it's all in good fun. It's all team sports and it's all football. But hey, we're here at training camp. We love it.
Yeah, and, everyone makes up and plays nice after. Go out and play a little Xbox against each other or whatever the guys do as they're in the dorm rooms at St. John Fisher. Andy, we usually do a little 3 and out here, but we've been so busy today. I will say this, the what you watching thing we usually do at the end. The only thing I can tell you is Happy Gilmore 2 is coming out at the end of the week. And our good friend Shooter McGavin back in the limelight once again. So looking forward to seeing what they did. There are a lot of PGA Tour players, it looks like, that are in this.
I mean, Happy Gilmore was awesome, and it took on a life of its own even later, years later, right? It's on TV all the time, so can't wait to see Happy Gilmore too, and our good buddy Shooter, who was on our podcast last year. Hopefully we'll get him on again.
Chris McDonald, we're trying.
Yeah.
We're coming for you, buddy.
Yeah. So, I mean, really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. But we do have work to do. Like I said, training camp's just getting underway. Plenty of practices to go ahead of the return of the red and the blue that will be held at the stadium a week from Friday night. So we're banging at it out at St. John Fisher University in Pittsford, New York, with Hard Knocks all over the place. We'll have more coming up at the end of the week as we put a wrap on this first chunk of Bills camp. But for now, for Andy, I'm Kevin. As always, thanks for watching, everyone.